Have a good day.
Yeah, how big is Diddy?
Whoa.
Wow. I get the 10
Come on
million.
now, man.
Can somebody beat me up for 10
Monetization.
million? Can they
You're
beat
going
me up
too
for
far.
10 million?
Yeah,
I want to
man.
get my ass beat for 10 million. I want to get my ass beat for 10 million. Isn't it freedom of speech? You have freedom of speech?
Have a good day, Dawn.
Okay, here we are, Matthew Russell Lee, Inner City Press, here at the Southern District of New York Courthouse. Today, Monday, May 19th, 2025. Now we're heading in for the second week of U.S. versus Sean Combs, the Diddy trial. We covered the first week in great detail. In fact, for reasons that I'll explain in a moment, we put out everything that we could about it in an ebook that you can find on Google Play. I'm also tweeting links to it, also in audiobook format. But it's turned out to be, I'll get into why. We did the first book in the series on Amazon, and then there were some, I guess they think the case is too controversial, but it seems strange because it's all over the world. But we switched platforms for at least this case, and you can find what we said. And the reason, upcoming, let's stick to the facts. Upcoming this week, there's Don Richard, but there's also going to be, after that, Cassie Ventura's friend Kerry Morgan will testify, then David Jones, then Sheree Hayes, Regina Ventura, Jordan Atkinson, and Gerard Ganon. And you can, of course, Google all of those people, but they'll be over the next 2 days, maybe even into Wednesday, according to the prosecutors.
You ever wonder what it takes for someone to finally speak up, even when it means going against one of the most powerful names in music? For years, Sean Diddy Combs seemed untouchable. He built an empire, launched careers, threw the biggest parties, and kept everything and everyone under control. But then someone from inside his circle broke the silence. Dawn Richard, a former member of Danity, Kane, and Diddy-Dirty Money, just sat down in front of a federal jury. And what she said? It wasn't just shocking. It felt like the beginning of something no one saw coming. Not the tabloids, not the fans, not even the industry, because this wasn't some distant accusation. This was personal. And as her testimony unfolded, it revealed a version of Diddy that very few people have ever seen. One that could change how the world remembers him. Before we go deeper, let's talk about who Dawn Richard actually is. Because this isn't just any witness. She wasn't a background dancer or a disgruntled ex-employee. She was handpicked by Diddy himself. Dawn rose to fame as part of Danity Kane, a girl group formed on his reality show Making the Band. Later, she joined Diddy-Dirty Money, a more experimental music project where she worked with him directly, day in and day out. She toured with him, lived under the same roof, saw what fans never saw. So when she walked into that courtroom, she wasn't coming in as an outsider. She was coming in as someone who had been in the room, someone who watched Diddy build his empire from the inside. And what she had to say wasn't just about business, it was about control, fear, and a kind of power that no one dared question. Until now. One of the first moments that made the courtroom pause came when Dawn recalled something Diddy told her years ago. He said, "People can go missing." Just 4 words, but enough to send a message. When the prosecutor asked how she interpreted that, Dawn didn't hesitate. That people could die, she said. It wasn't a throwaway comment. According to her, it was part of a pattern, a subtle but constant reminder that Diddy was in control, and that crossing him came with consequences. She wasn't the only one who heard things like that either, but she was one of the few who ever admitted it. And that moment in court, it was the crack in the wall. The point where you realize this trial isn't just about celebrity drama. It's about fear, loyalty, and what happens when someone finally stops being afraid. Then came the moment the room truly went quiet. Dawn testified that she saw Diddy physically assault Cassie, not once, not in private, but multiple times in front of others. She described scenes where he dragged Cassie, kicked her, and even punched her in the mouth. No hesitation, no shame, and no one stepped in. One time, she said, they were all in New York for a music festival. After an argument, Cassie walked into the bathroom crying. When she came out, her eye was swollen. Dawn didn't need to ask what had happened, she said. It was clear. Another time during a car ride back to Los Angeles, Diddy allegedly slapped Cassie across the face and told her to shut the fung up. According to Dawn, everyone in the car went silent for the rest of the ride. No one said a word. It wasn't just a one-time explosion. It was a pattern. And hearing it from someone who was there made it hit different. What struck people the most wasn't just the violence, it was how normal it all seemed to the people around him. Don said security guards were present during some of the assaults. Names like D-Rock and Roger Bonds came up, men who had worked closely with Diddy for years. They saw what happened, but no one stepped in. No one even flinched. It wasn't because they didn't care. It was because they were scared too. Don explained it clearly. If he did that to someone he supposedly loved, what would he do to an employee? That sentence stuck with people. It captured the atmosphere of control and intimidation that she says ruled Diddy's world. She even admitted that when she spoke to him, even years later, she always kept her voice soft, always called him bro, not out of respect, out of survival. Because in that world, silence was the safest choice. As Dawn kept talking, the picture she painted got darker. She told the court that Diddy often carried a handgun tucked into the back of his waistband, not during shows, not for protection on the road, just casually, at home, in the studio, like it was nothing, and it wasn't just him. Security guards, including D-Rock and Roger Bonds, were also armed, according to her. It was part of the environment. Then came the drugs. Dawn said she saw Diddy using marijuana, ketamine, and Molly regularly. She clarified that she never saw him use opiates or cocaine, but the drugs were always around. There was even someone she referred to as One Stop, the guy who, in her words, had everything. Not just party drugs, but also Plan B and birth control pills. It wasn't just about partying. It felt organized, controlled, and it added another layer to what this case is starting to look like. Not just personal misconduct, but a whole system built around power, silence, and keeping things hidden. One question kept hanging in the air. If Dawn saw all of this, why didn't she come forward sooner? She answered that directly. According to her, both Diddy and Bad Boy executive Harv Pierre told her to stay quiet. Not asked, told. It was clear, she said. Talking would come with consequences, so she didn't. Not for years. But then something changed. In 2024, Dawn watched Cassie take the stand and speak publicly for the first time about what she endured. And in that moment, something clicked. Dawn said seeing Cassie tell the truth under oath gave her the courage to finally step out of the shadows herself. That's when she decided to file her own civil lawsuit. And when Diddy's lawyers asked her if it was about money, she didn't deny it was part of the case. But she said the real reason was deeper. I needed to tell the truth, she said. For the first time, she felt like maybe it wasn't too late to be heard. Once the prosecution wrapped up, it was the defense's turn, and they wasted no time. Diddy's lawyers went straight at Dawn's credibility. They brought up past interviews, pointed out things she didn't say back then, and questioned why certain claims, like the "people can go missing" comment, only showed up recently. They even pulled up a document showing that in 7 previous statements, she hadn't mentioned that specific threat at all. Was it something she truly forgot, or something added later? Then they took it further. They asked her point blank, if Diddy was so dangerous, why did she reach out to him after everything? Why did she try to work with him again? Dawn admitted, yes, she had contacted him. Yes, she'd wanted to reconnect professionally. But she said that didn't mean what she experienced wasn't real. It was complicated, messy, emotional. And while the defense tried to frame it as manipulation or opportunism, for a lot of people watching, it felt more like something real. The kind of messy, tangled situation that doesn't fit into clean sound bites. Because sometimes survivors don't act how people expect. One of the hardest things to understand. And one of the most powerful parts of Dawn's testimony was how the connection between her and Diddy never really ended, even after leaving the group. Even after witnessing what she says were clear acts of abuse. Even after the fear, she admitted that Diddy would still FaceTime her out of nowhere, especially when she was gaining momentum in her solo career. And when he called, she'd answer. She said she always spoke to him gently, always called him bro. Not out of affection, but because it felt safer that way. To the outside world, that kind of ongoing contact might seem strange. But to anyone who's lived through manipulation or power imbalance, it makes sense. It's not about logic, it's about survival. When asked why she didn't completely cut ties, Dawn said it was complicated. There was history, there was fear, and there was still part of her that didn't want to believe the person who helped launch her career was capable of what she'd seen. But now, she said, there was no more space for denial. Sometimes it's not just what people say, it's what they wear. During the trial, the prosecution brought up a photo from a Central Park event. In it, both Cassie and Dawn are wearing large sunglasses. Not for fashion, but according to Dawn, for something far more painful. She testified that Cassie wore them to cover bruises, swollen eyes, the kind of injuries you don't want anyone to see, especially under a spotlight. Dawn said she wore hers in solidarity. It was a quiet act of support, a message without words that Cassie wasn't alone, and it spoke volumes. When asked why she stayed close to Cassie after witnessing what happened, Dawn didn't hesitate. "I wanted her to feel supported." That answer landed hard, because while much of the testimony focused on trauma and fear, that moment reminded everyone that there was still humanity in the middle of all this. Real friendship, real pain, and the heavy cost of staying silent for too long. Dawn Richards' testimony is just the beginning. This trial, United States versus Sean Combs, is far from over. The witness list is long, and each name adds another layer to a story that's been hidden for years. Next up is Carrie Morgan, a close friend of Cassie's. After her, prosecutors plan to call David Jones, Sheree Hayes, Regina Ventura, and Gerard Yennon. Names that may not be famous, but whose stories could be crucial. And while there are no cameras inside the courtroom, what's happening is being felt far beyond those four walls. This isn't just about celebrity gossip or media headlines. It's about power, who holds it, how it's used, and what it takes to finally challenge it. For years, Diddy's world looked untouchable, but now, one testimony at a time, the cracks are showing. And whatever the final verdict may be, something already changed the moment someone from his own circle looked him in the eye and said, "I saw everything."